Hello my dear viewers, welcome to my channel. My name is Rita, I'm in Neslet, and today's video will be kind of strange for my channel because it will be about love and why all we knew about love is fake, it's not real, and like why those humans who like being orphaned are kind of addicts. So that's all about this video. So here we go. So imagine such a situation. Night, you're going to the fridge and you hit the table with your finger. First, you feel like nothing, and then the pain comes. And after that, you maybe, if you're a girl, you start crying or whatever. Then comes kind of enjoyment, kind of pleasure. So you really kind of enjoy the fact that you fit the finger. So why it really works in such a way? So when you get an injury, when you feel kind of pain, your body releases endorphins just to suppress your pain. And you know, it's scientifically proved that endorphins is not a hormones of pleasure, it's drug and an opiate. So the same thing applies to relationship with person, no matter what really harms you. Is it like physical injury or like mental injury? If there are too much quarrels in the relationships with a person, you become kind of addicted to the person. During every quarrel, your body perceives that person as a danger. And like if you really feel a great amount of emotions, so you are thinking only with your ancient part of brains. Your conscious part of brains is turned off, and so you have only three types of reactions. Maybe you heard about them. It's only bit, run, and freeze. And you know, the most popular reaction is just freezing, when you like don't answer anything, when you are offended. Other reactions like beat or freeze is like when you start screaming at the person, or just ignore him if you just run. So the most unprofitable and the most popular reaction is just freeze. When you, so your body produces adrenaline to maximize your physical abilities, because your body perceives the person is a danger. And if you don't use that adrenaline, it is suppressed by endorphins. And that's what develops a real addiction to the person. And you know, when you was on like in these relationships too long, it develops the addiction, and it will be harder for you to quit the person, to break with that person. And like the more struggles, the more emotions you get from that person, the more you will struggle without him. If you get endorphins because of the person, it's like the one level with real drugs. So that person who, of course, who like being offended, they also like get these endorphins, because during the quarrel, you know, your body releases that adrenaline, and if that person chooses not to answer anything, it uses no adrenaline, and that's why the amount of endorphins is the greatest. And you know, we weren't taught to what is a real love, because like all the movies, all the social media, all these films show us these destructive relationships where there are a lot of quarrels, a lot of kind of drama, Santa Barbara, and you really don't know what is love. But the real love is something that is based only on dopamine, and all the love that we wanna get, that goosebumps, that emotions, is only adrenaline love, and that's not real love. Real love is something that is very often confused with friendship. It develops like slowly, and there aren't any like huge emotions in such relationships. So, and you know, there imagine such a situation. There are like two families, and in both families the granddaddy died. So it's kind of sad situation. But in first family, where there was a ton of quarrels, and like the granny with the grandfather had a very bad relationship. And you know, the second situation is like good relationships where there wasn't any quarrels, like the granny with the granddad had great relationships. But after the death of granddaddy, the granny, like, yeah, of course she cried a bit, but she kind of overcame it better. Like, she maybe cried for some days, and then she just forget. She continued her life, like, despite that their relationships were better than in first situation. Why it works in such a way? Because dopamine love is something that doesn't develop an addiction. And the first situation where there was a lot of quarrels, it's something that always made the body produce these adrenaline, and which is represented by endorphins. And that's why if the person doesn't get all these kind of drugs and adrenaline and endorphins, yeah, it starts really struggling. And you know, if you really are a person of drama, you can't imagine your life without all these strugglings. It's something that really gives the feeling of life, because if you have kind of not very interesting day, if you don't have your hobby, if you hate your work, such relationships give you a feeling of life. So a great amount of humans really find their life in such relationships. But I also want to share with you one experiment. There was a group of mouses which was kind of shocked. After a certain period of time, these mouses were given two bottoms. First bottom gave them a food, and second bottom gave them that shock them temperature. Why they chose the second bottom, like why they chose that hit of temperature of talk? Because when they were hit with talk, their body produced adrenaline, which was suppressed by endorphins. And so guess how this experiment ended? The mouses died from hunger, so they chose every time when they had to choose one of the bottom, they chose second bottom. I decided to not allow anyone to manipulate me and to make myself feel that adrenaline. I don't even allow myself like struggle if I have friends, if I have like relationships with someone, if they're slapped. These relationships are also based only on friendship. I don't allow any like such quarrels, like any destructive relationships, because you know, maybe you really feel like amazing after all these quarrels because of the endorphins, but it really can end very very bad, and like in 7 years you can really develop a chronic diseases, and because of the hormonal imbalance. And even if we are talking about current state, that's like such relationships is something that doesn't allow you develop. And for me, like developing, improving some of my skills, it's more important than love, because love is permanent. And if I really love that person, I never allow him struggle. I mean that squirrels in relationships are possible, but you know, in that dopamine love, which is very often perceived as a friendship, quarrels is something like not perceived as quarrels. It's just constructive arguments, like without any emotions. These humans just try to find the solution, like without any emotions, without any screamings. But in opposite situation, when there's adrenaline addiction, these two persons like can't live without these quarrels, because that's something that make them both addict to each other. So if you recognized you in these relationships, if you really have a destructive relationships, and you decided to break up with that person, be ready that you will struggle, because it's an addiction. The best way to kind of suppress that pain is sports, because if you always was in that adrenaline imbalance and endorphin imbalance, sometimes your body will ask you to get that adrenaline, because if the struggles was like every day, so you get that dose of adrenaline like every day, and if you just break up with that person, you stop getting that kind of dose, and your organism is struggling, and that's why most of humans that broke up with that person who they were addicted to, they came back to him or her. Such relationships, such destructive relationships, is something that suppresses instincts. Like, why all of them addicts, like they realize that they are in danger. That's something that harms their health, and they can even die. Like, why they can't quit that bad habit? Such adrenaline addiction is something that suppresses your instincts. So your ancient brain began to kind of change, and it doesn't work in the right way. So your brains like stop trying to save you. So if you broke up with a person and you understand that you can't endure anymore, you wanted to come back to that person, you wanted that adrenaline and that saturated life, even if it's destructive for you. Sports is something that will save you and your health, because adrenaline during sports, it's natural. Like if you run, of course, if you run, your body produces adrenaline, which is then suppressed by endorphins, but it's natural. That doesn't have any consequences for our health, because if you get adrenaline and these endorphins from bad relationships, that develops the diseases, even a cancer. So after maybe 7 years of such relationships, you can really have a bad diagnosis. And I really thought of that can be kind of beneficial for upper star of population, because imagine you were always like crushed. You can develop because of these addictive relationships, and so all these humans who love that adrenaline, it is very easy to sell them something. It is very simple to kind of manipulate them, control them. And so I decided to break up all the relationships which are not like mine. And every time when somebody tries to manipulate me, to provoke me, I just don't give him any emotions. Those humans who like manipulating, they are addicted to your reaction. It's something that gives them the feeling of life. So thank you for watching this video. I hope it was helpful for you. If you really recognize you or your friend, you can help him by sharing this video.